Well, people, welcome back, hopefully, to Fresco Football, where we do things differently. We are working on the fly today with plenty of faces, a couple of changing faces, actually, since the last time we recorded. I want to welcome Dev and Daniel, and of course, Kim back again. They are going to be chatting through what has been a sensational weekend of football. Essentially, we have seen the likes of 16-year-olds skipping school and becoming, folklore heroes in their first moments for their club. We've seen new signings galore doing their thing and goals galore as well. There have been so many moments that I don't really know where we should start, but we will start just by saying hello to everyone. How are we all doing? Daniel, Chelsea, suddenly switching the gears up. Obviously, West Ham are in trouble, but it's a goal fest and a little bit of a fresh take on things with Estevao coming in so early because of Palmer's exit.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. I was a little bit concerned for the first 10, 20 minutes. I don't know if it was Palmer's late injury that disrupted things a bit, but once Chelsea got going and clicking, it was kind of a continuation of, I think, a lot of the things that had excited us heading into the season. Obviously, a lot of the analysis is about West Ham, but absolutely you're right to mention Estevao, incredible debut. I think me and Louis have both been kind of, and I think other Chelsea fans have been quite hesitant to kind of go overboard about Estevao because you know how Chelsea's a bit of a mad washing machine at times and players can kind of get chewed up and spat out a bit. But I think the way he's conducted himself very early on, there's a lot of confidence there that you can see naturally. And Chelsea have to take advantage of bad teams when they're there. Like I think it's been a frustration of mine, particularly at that specific stadium. Chelsea haven't always had a great record. So to win so convincingly, I mean, it did set up a very beautiful weekend of football because then on Saturday, I'm there watching from 12:30 to about 8 o'clock, finishing with some Serie A. So yeah, it was a lovely weekend of football. And yeah, from a Chelsea point of view, kind of had to win after the anticlimactic nature of the Palace game.
Well, look, we'll get back into that. Let's just say hello to Dev as well. Manchester United off to a rocky start. Are you still? I mean, how are you doing? First things first. This is the first time we've met, actually. So let's break the ice.
No, exactly. Yeah. No,
I don't know where you
very
stand
well.
on anything. So this is a really fresh take, and it'd be good to hear how you think Amorim and United are going to get on this season.
Yeah, no, I'm doing a lot better. I think the last time we filmed I had a chest infection, so most of it's gone now. So I feel a lot better, thank you. But yeah, good to be here. I think I'd like to be here and under better circumstances in terms of just getting a few more goals and wins because we haven't scored. It was an own goal. I think everyone and their mum could tell it was an own goal. So overall, I'm happier having lost to Arsenal than I am having drawn to Fulham because I thought we showed something against you lot that we didn't show against the team that is sort of middle of the rung, like kind of Premier League team, a good little outlier to see where you're going to be, how you're playing. And ultimately we fell flat and we had a good first 15 minutes, good first 20. And that's how I'm feeling at the moment, just a bit flat about United. I'm sure we'll get into it, but not happy. If I was to boil it down to one phrase, like anticlimactic is one word that Daniel used. I think that is probably the most anticlimactic I've felt in a while. We had a good performance, thinking things were going to change. Nothing changed in that game. So a lot remains to be seen. And some of the things I'm hearing Amorim say and rumbles around the club with 6 days left of the window, not great. So yeah, very disappointed at the moment. But, you know, we beat the mighty Grimsby tomorrow, or we're, at the time of filming, if we beat the mighty Grimsby, then let's see what happens. But even if we pop them 8-0, I don't know if I'd feel any different. So yeah, not great.
Well, we'll be getting into that a little bit more in a bit, but Kim, another, well, I mean, a shock,
it's a bad
really.
Weekend.
Yeah, bad weekend.
Bad weekend of football.
I mean, some of them are a little bit of your bogey team. There is that.
Yeah, they are. They are. It doesn't make any sense. Like, no matter who the manager is, whether it's Antonio Conte, Postecoglou, now Thomas Frank, Spurs just seem to come to the Etihad and roll us over. I think that performance was super, super disappointing. I think a lot of us thought, like, with the players that we have, with the amount of money we've spent, with the fact that we've got Guardiola, it couldn't stay the same as what it was last year, but that performance was exactly the same. There was no difference, really, no improvement whatsoever. And I think after such an exciting performance against Wolves, that was just super, super disappointing. And we'll get onto it properly in a bit, I'm sure. But I'm looking at that squad and I'm looking at the players on the bench, and I'm just thinking that if you're Manchester City and you're a team where their expectation is to basically win the treble every single year, win the quadruple every single year, I'm looking at that squad and it's just not, it's miles off it. It's miles off what it has been over the last few years. And it's too early to say because obviously we've got these new players, these exciting players. I think Reinders and Cherky, Aït-Nouri obviously went off injured, but they look like they could be fantastic players. But I think at the moment there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. And like Dev, like so excited, like buzzing to go back up to Manchester, go back to the Etihad, meet all the boys, absolutely great atmosphere before the game. And then that happens and it's like, all right, I've remembered. I don't like football very much.
There's a long time to go and there is plenty for us to get through. So I want to skip straight to what was an epic clash, a clash for the services of Aleksander Isak. Both sides going hell for leather. Just the passion, the aggression. It was 90s Premier League football back again with just decision after decision that was contentious. And even the styles of play. Louis is adamant that, Newcastle were playing an unsexy brand of football. I think he has made a point of actually saying that there were tactics that should be brought into question. So I will throw this question out to you guys. Did you have an issue with the long throws, the Route 1 style of play? Or are you impressed that Liverpool was stopped from doing what they do so well? I'll throw it to Daniel first. Because it was a 5-goal thriller in the end that really did have it all.
Yeah, I think it's also just the circumstance of the game, right? Like the narrative around the game, the hostility of it beforehand, the fact that Newcastle had to go over a half really when you put in added time of being down to 10 men against that Liverpool side, and needs must, right? And I think you used the momentum of the crowd, you used the momentum of the situation, and it didn't feel that similar to me to the League Cup final, to be honest. I think you look at the way Eddie Howe set up Newcastle to beat Liverpool back in March, and it was a lot playing the ball down the channel, physically direct towards Isak at the time. The Dan Burn goal from a corner. I mean, it's how Newcastle play, and I think what I've even seen from some of the promoted teams this year is there seems to be a nice adaptability about Premier League football that there maybe wasn't, or there was some concern at the top level. We're kind of becoming a little bit stale, where everyone seems to be wanting to play the same way. I think, the challenge from Gordon was just horrendous, and rightly he was rightly sent off. But in terms of like long throws, getting direct, making Liverpool feel uncomfortable, I mean, it's what you have to do, right, to stay in the game. I don't feel there needs to be any sneering about that.
I mean, there was a stat that was going around where I think it was one of the, if not the highest amount of time that the ball had been out of play. So, maybe for fans,
40%, was it? Like compared
40%
to,
of
I
the
think
game.
a Stoke game back in 2008 was the last time that had happened. So.
Right. Yeah, that is quite something. Game management gone mad, or needs must. They are, they don't. When they do put their moves together, anyway, I think it was quite an attractive style of play. It was quite committed. It's obviously not for everybody, but they nearly got something from the game, and that was ruined, or not ruined, or there was a celebratory moment for a literal child. So let's go, Dev. What do you think about the future of Liverpool's left-hand side with the teenager, Rio, who stole the moment or stole the shine at the end with just a very calm finish?
Yeah, he's a United fan though, isn't he? I've seen a
Is he
few
really?
little videos come out of him like being a United fan. But it was, to be fair, it looks like an easy goal, but in the like away at St James's Park in your first game. He was only on for 4 minutes, wasn't he? I think it was his second touch of the ball, and he leathers it. It's not like it was a tentative finish. He properly leathered it. So, like, fair play to the kid. I mean, he's done, like, that's an amazing moment, whichever way you choose to look at it. I think it's the first time that a 16-year-old or someone who's 16 has scored a winner in the Premier League since Rooney. So it's like, you know, he's got big shoes to fill if he's going to do that. But he looks good. I think there was a lot of chat about him in the summer about him being one of the more exciting talents to come out of an academy. I think they poached him from Chelsea as well. So I think it's a good little win for Liverpool. And it's just one of those games that the only thing I posted after that game was, God, I hate Liverpool. And that's just because those sorts of moments, they do go on to give you a good campaign. They do go on to like fuel something, especially with them. And they shouldn't have been in a position to win ugly because they had the upper hand and Newcastle forced their hand quite a lot, but they still won ugly. They probably didn't deserve to win it. History won't remember that though. History will remember a 16-year-old kid winning them the league for a vital 3 points in the Premier League. So winning them the game, in the vital 3 points for the Prem. So fair play to them. I hate them and I hate everyone associated with them, but you gotta give it to the kid. Great moment, and I just knew it's going to be one of them you're going to replay, and he deserves it. But anyone but them. I just wish it was someone else.
Kim, all the talking about Aleksander Isak, we will get onto that in a second. But what do you think of Ekitike so far?
Yeah, I think he's been absolutely exceptional, to be fair. I'm really, really impressed with him. I don't know why I took him out of my fantasy team for Seska last week. I don't know why I was playing with that. I just thought that Newcastle would beat Liverpool. I don't know why I thought that. It was a poor move. But yeah, I've been super impressed with them. And I think, like Dev says as well, especially, and you'll get this as well, being an Arsenal fan, like, these are the kind of games that when you consider yourself in a title race that are just super frustrating. It happened the first game of the season against Bournemouth where you thought, can Bournemouth hold on? They go on to score in the 86th minute. Again here, they score in the 101st minute. And it's really, really frustrating for an opposing fan, especially knowing that probably by the end of the week, they will have sorted out what is probably perceived as their two issues, which is that the defence doesn't look as good as it has, which is why they've been shipping goals. They'll probably get Mark Gahey in. And their attack, realistically, as good as Ekitike is, they have limited options there. And by the end of next week, they'll probably have Aleksander Isak. And it's really frustrating, I think, when you're looking at this game as a non-Liverpool fan, that these are the two games, particularly before they probably get those two players in, where you're thinking, okay, they can drop a few points. Then obviously they've got to go to Arsenal. Really difficult game. We don't know. Well, it's at Anfield, isn't it? But they've got to play Arsenal. And then you're looking at them and you're thinking, okay, well, they've actually dropped quite a few points already. So for the fact that they've scored in the last minute twice in a row is super frustrating. But I mean, I've been impressed by everything Arne Slot's done so far. I was impressed last year how he basically took over a team that had nothing to do with him, that wasn't his identity, went and stormed the league. Now he's identified these 4 players that he's brought in so far. Each one of them is already playing pretty well from what I've seen. So, yeah, they look really difficult to beat.
I don't know about that. I mean, not everything that you said, but literally just the last bit. Kirkes looks uneasy, unsettled. And I didn't actually realise that he's only 21. So he is still very young and has a lot to learn. He's probably the one that hasn't impressed me as much as the rest of them, who look like they're all ready to go. It's quite annoying, actually, that Frimpong, well, for slots in Liverpool, it's quite annoying that Liverpool, they've lost a top player there he's more than capable of doing even some of the things that Salah can't do as well, I think, and won't do, which, you know, isn't too controversial, just getting to the byline and whatnot. But you saw, you know, they're more than capable of just waiting until the very death, and they're given a little bit of help with the extra time that was added on, for sure. But it almost felt inevitable after Bruno had dived in. And we move to Aleksander Isak, which is, I guess, one of the biggest talking points. Both of these clubs desperate to keep their man. Apparently there have been talks with the owner, which haven't transpired as anything changing about the player's wish, but I don't know how much pull the owners actually have. I guess in the media, it seems to be the case that a lot of ex-players are siding with Aleksander Isak and more understanding of his, experience here. How do you feel about it? Fans obviously going to be devastated that a guy who's pretty much a legend, he's got to be an icon of the club already, having lifted a trophy, is, going out in this manner. Daniel, what do you reckon?
In terms of the player side of it, I mean, it's not the first time we've seen higher profile players act in this manner, particularly from a Premier League point of view. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. And I know, if I remember rightly, he actually eventually came back and started the season. Harry Kane, that summer when he wanted to go Man City, and he kind of made it quite publicly clear. And Daniel Levy just sort of dug his heels in and said, "You ain't going." And I feel quite similar in the sense that it's all this about a gentleman's agreement, and it's like if it's not written down on paper, you see this consistently with certain players. Particularly, I think Spurs is probably the strongest example, but I can kind of understand Newcastle's point of view. Well, it was never written down in contract we were going to sell you this summer, but there does always come a point with, and we've probably all experienced this with our clubs, with players, where even if you don't want to lose them, and even if you would like the situation to be resolved, I think there just becomes a point of no return, and there becomes a point where to move on as a club, it's healthy to get players out, and there has to be compromise. I think you will see that across the course of the last week with players like, say, Garnacho, right? Like, I'm sure Amorim doesn't want to keep him around, even if United are pushing for a high price. I don't want this guy around. And there's a negotiate, a bit like Sancho last year. I think with Isak, it feels like a similar thing. And if it's not going to happen this window, I think you're just kind of delaying the inevitable, really. So it's in some ways it's a sad story because he lifting that trophy against Liverpool a few months ago, and how big things could have been for him. But I don't want to take up too much time with everyone else's answers, but I do also wonder whether with Aston Villa within this as well, it's kind of a sign of the PSR maybe ceiling for some of these clubs at the moment, who are, they're really trying to get to the next level, but they're finding some difficulty despite Newcastle's insane wealth.
The wealth doesn't really seem to have had much impact. I mean, they can't really do too much if they're not making more money. So I think, from my perspective anyway, if you were to get 130, 120 even million pounds, that really would help push the club on more than anything. And they have missed a trick by, holding out and playing whatever game they're playing and not picking up Ekitike, who, could have come in immediately, we've seen, and, done some sort of job. It was, or it's also worth talking about Nicholas Jackson and Strand Larsen, who I think they've actually made a bid for, but has been rejected. So they are still looking kind of desperate out here.
50 million quid. 50 million great British pounds.
Such poor management by the club. It doesn't make any sense. I think, from my understanding, I think Isak probably had an agreement with Amanda Stavley, who's obviously not at the club anymore. So he probably feels a little bit hard done by, but those are just the things that can happen. I think it's really disappointing for him as a player, being a legend at Newcastle. You've also just won a trophy and you're in the Champions League. Like, it's not that much more you can want. I'm sure that would have been the expectation when he came, that he wants to play in the Champions League. Obviously, he wants to win trophies and stuff, but he's still young and he can still do that if he leaves next year. I think the way he's gone about it is really poor. But I do think that, like, Newcastle fans have spent a lot of time, burning effigies of Aleksander Isak, but they also do need to look at how absolutely awfully ran this transfer business has been for them. Everybody has known for the last 2 months that Aleksander Isak probably wants to go. Everyone at the club will have known that. The fact that they didn't just go and buy a striker or 2 strikers or 3 players and then sell Aleksander Isak to Liverpool, which we all knew would have been a record transfer, would have made so much sense. Now they've got, 5 days left of the transfer window, and they're trying to spend 50 million quid on Bruno Strand Larsen, which Wolves are just going to reject because they know that Newcastle are going into this season without a striker, and they also know that come the end of the window they're going to have 130 million. It is the worst negotiating I think I've ever seen in a transfer window. It's so poor, and they have massively let their fans down just as much as Isak has, in my opinion.
I don't know how fans will react, whether they want him back. He is good enough to sort of win your heart back with a few stunning strikes pretty quickly. But yeah, it's a total mess for sure. And we should cast our mind back, not that long ago anyway. Luis Suarez trying to force a move to Arsenal and or another Champions League club, and stayed at the club. I think sort of pressured into staying at the club, or, you know, led to believe that Steven Gerrard's had quite a big influence there, had a little word. And he stayed and scored 31 goals the next season, apparently. So there will be people hoping that they can cling on to him, because it is going to be difficult to make things, you know, look better on paper or the pitch before the window closes. Dev, what do you think about Rio Ngoma? Scoring at 16. What were you doing at 16?
Oh, mate, probably trying to do the same on Ultimate Team, and the man's living it in real life. So no, like fair play to him. I want to add my 2 pence on the Isak thing, just if I may. I'm kind of a bit old fashioned in the sense that you got a contract, see it out. I'm very old fashioned. I don't care who you are. You're getting paid by these clubs millions of pounds. You better get your head down and work. I'm simple as that. Like, I know that there might be some, like you say, it's he said, she said, until we know what's actually been said and done in that stage. But I'm not impressed with him. I'm not impressed with Johan Visser taking everything off of anything to do with Brentford off of his socials and blacking it out, considering that no one would know who he was if it wasn't for Brentford. I think these players do need to just have a bit of a reality check. Like, the clubs need to respect them, but you know, you're not getting paid a pittance. These are hundreds of thousands of pounds a week we're talking about. And Isak, you want to go to Liverpool, fine, but if your club doesn't want to sell you, don't sign a 5-year deal. Then I'm very old fashioned. If you think you were going to be that type of player, you should have signed an earlier deal. Your agent should have had better foresight. You should have been a lot more forthcoming with things at the beginning. All these statements on social media, I should know as a United fan. We've had it with Sancho, we've had it with Garnacho. These players just think that they're bigger than the club. Aleksander Isak, you're not bigger than Newcastle. I think you need a reality check, and I think a lot of these players do. So no, I'm not. I feel very strongly I'm not happy with how these things have been run, and especially when you see, like, you know, these young players we talk about with Ngomoa, with like any of the young players like coming in. I think it's not setting a good precedent to these players either. Like, you want these players to be, you know, they're going to be like, Ngomoa is going to be signing a long-term professional contract pretty soon with a club. He signed a short-term one with Liverpool now, so let's see what he does in the future. United have got a few. I know City have got some really good young players coming through, and they want to get them signed to long-term deals as well. And you just don't want it to set a nasty precedent. So I hope that these young players can sort of just enjoy what's happening with their football, and make sure that things like that don't really tend to get in the way too much, because Liverpool have got a good player on their hands, and I think they know that, especially with Salah. You know, how long will he perform at this level has been a question for the past 2 to 3 seasons, and he's still consistently performing, if not better, in his numbers. It remains to be seen, but I think Liverpool, they have produced some good young players, and sometimes that's been sour by the way that it's been managed. I think Liverpool is quite well known for letting players run out their contracts or waiting until the last minute to get things sorted. So I hope that just players and fans start to use this, especially with the young players, as a bit of a yardstick and a learning curve to be like, you know, let's not let it get toxic. Let's actually enjoy this time, because Ngomoa now, 4 minutes, he scores a winner. Like, that's the expectation. It's not going to be to have that every game, but he's going to have to manage that expectation, and so is Slot. So I'll be interested to see what they do, because, you know, I thought bringing him on was a bit of a ballsy move. Like, you're looking to see out the game, you bring on an attacker, and I thought it was a ballsy move to rely on him, considering who they had on the bench. So yeah, I thought it worked out well for him. He looks like a good lad, like he's got his head on his shoulders, but yeah, just more remains to be seen. Just, we don't want to go down the route of, you know, wishing so much for him when, you know, it is so early on in his career, but couldn't have asked for a better start, to be fair.
Controversial views, I've got to say. It's interesting to hear that perspective. Essentially, yeah, the contracts, it's quite interesting. Do you feel the same way about players when the club no longer wants them?
In what sense do you mean? So, like, as in?
Well, I mean, you felt quite strongly that a player should abide by the terms of his contract.
Mhm.
So, do you feel the same way about as strongly when clubs are trying to get rid of players, basically?
I think context is pretty key. But like, if the player's forcing a move, if they behaved in a certain way, and the club wants them out, again, I'm talking as United. I've got a few players in mind, so I feel a bit stronger maybe than you guys do. But I think there are certain aspects where, yeah, you got to take it into account. But again, I just am old fashioned. I mean, these are the lads that are getting paid this amount of money, and they've got the best job in the world. And what I think for me, it's not just the respect of the club, but it always comes back on the fans. Like, no matter what, Isak, yeah, he brought a trophy to Newcastle, and wasn't the only one. There was a lot of players who helped with that, but it's you are disrespecting a fan base when you act like that, and these players tend to forget that without these, like, people like us go in and paying as much as we do for games, as much as we do for licenses to watch them, there wouldn't be this money to earn in the first place. So I think that they're forgetting who the important people are, and they are the fans, and you are disrespecting them. So for me, it kind of comes down to that. And to your point, I think if a player wants to force a move away, and let's say a club wants to keep them, or the player has like significant grounds for it, it's all contextual. It all depends on what it is. But Garnacho is a really good example. He agrees personal terms with Chelsea. We still play him. He mouths off after Europa League. He's posting pictures on his socials. He's doing everything to bring the club into disrepute, and now we're having to wait to him in order for him to agree his move. I think that's a disgrace, and I think it's a slap in the face for us. The same with Sancho. So no, I'm of the opinion. I'm more on the opinion of on the side of the clubs and on the side of the fans than I will be on the players. I'll be honest.
Right, that's so interesting. What do you guys feel about that? Daniel, I can see you itching to get something out.
Is this more about that flip situation where a club suddenly doesn't want a player anymore?
Well, I mean, like I was saying, I guess it works both ways. It's like, they are essentially assets, and it is a business. So you are going to be bought and sold, unless in the very rare circumstance you actually see your contract out. But I suppose that is happening a lot more now for player power. And it is a very interesting sort of legal cat and mouse game where, it is generally known now that it's much more in the player's interest to wait as long as possible, and your options, can be a multitude of clubs that wouldn't have come in will now have the whereabouts too. So I do hear what Dev is saying. I just find it so interesting to hearing it both ways, because it suits the club, and obviously the fans want what suits the club, but these are people as well. So on the one hand, we're happy to say, like, we want you to abide by your contract because we know you're a good player and we just want to keep you, and you signed on those terms. But also, it is complex. It's like, if a club decides that they would rather have money for you, let's say, for example, randomly, like a Jakob Kivior for Arsenal right now, is anyone thinking about the player having to move his family and kids? Do they care? There's a lot going on, basically. And I would think that in much the same way as you get players that sort of do their utmost to, whether it's bring the club into disrepute or just lower their value, you're also going to get clubs who go out of their way to make it really difficult for you to stay. And
what I would say is for every Aleksander Isak, he's one. For every one of him, there's 1,000 footballers and young footballers whose careers are ruined by clubs who block moves because they haven't got enough money, or players who have been at, like, let's say, like Chelsea, for example, who've been on like 1,000 loans and have never been sold because they always want to keep them just in case they ever hit the ground. How many careers have we seen that happen to? So many. And I think, like, you make an interesting point there about disrespecting the fans. I think the truth of the matter is now, especially with football the way it is at the moment, there is no connection at all between the club and the owners of the club and fans. None. They don't care about you. They'll never care about you at all. They will just try and bleed you dry for as much as you can possibly get. City are owned by some of the richest people in the world. We also have the poorest fan base in the whole of the Premier League, but City have decided to up the season tickets by 50 quid, 100 quid every year. Why? Inconsequential. Just because they want to bleed us dry because they don't give a shit about us. The players care about us. The players are the only ones who care about you. And they'll leave and they will go on to care about someone else. Jack Grealish will go on to care about Everton just as much as he did about City fans. That's fine. But they're the only base connections. I understand why Newcastle fans are so like emotional and so upset and so hurt by it because they've shared this special moment with this bloke. But let's not pretend as if like the club and the fans are on the same side, uniting against Aleksander Isak. The club don't give a shit about the Newcastle fans.
It is very. I've seen it a number of times with Chelsea, right, and other clubs do this. It is. Everyone talks about player power, but club PR power, when it is able to spin a narrative to turn a fan base against a player, I've seen it happen multiple times. I think about the Mason Mount exit at Chelsea, and I'm probably in a minority now of Chelsea fans who, I mean, listen, Mount's moved on, and he's not had a great career since he left. But I found that whole exit and the way Chelsea fans turned against Mount very, very toxic and very nasty, and something I didn't really enjoy. And you talk about treating these people like humans. I mean, Trev Chalobah is my favorite player in the current Chelsea squad, and the reason why is because this is a guy who came through our academy, went to Ipswich, went to Lorient, battling relegation in Ligue 1, came through under Thomas Tuchel, but almost every summer his club tries to sell him. Last summer he was banished from first team facilities. This is not someone who goes out of his way to slag off the club during international breaks like some clubs do, or try and angle his way into a move. He just loves Chelsea and he goes to Crystal Palace. And I think at that point, I would have been okay if Trev turned around and stick two fingers up at the club and said, "You've not treated me with respect. I'm going to do what's best for my career." But again, he's back and he's in the defence with Levi Colwill against PSG, and he's one of Chelsea's best defenders. And there are shades of grey within this, but I think that there absolutely is it's something I don't have too much emotional attachment at times anymore to players if they move and getting angry about that, because these are professionals, and I think you just have to accept that they're going to do what's best for their own career and respecting that. And unless I think the only talking about Dev, I understand the emotional side of it, but unless a player like distinctly comes out and Kai Havertz, some of the quotes he made after leaving Arsenal, I was perfectly fine with him leaving, but some of the quotes he made, I was like, okay, now I think now you're asking for a bit, like there is a little bit of like gamesmanship here where he's not slagging off Chelsea fans, but it's just I can understand why those quotes are going to be interpreted in a certain way. But unless a player truly comes out and says, like, I'm going to score an own goal against you, which Gallas did years ago at Chelsea, and even he got forgiven in the end, coming back 10 years later on the pitch and he was celebrated. Unless you do that, I'm someone that I kind of just, it's brutal, it's clinical, like it's it could be accused of being a little bit distant, but I think that's just the way it goes, unfortunately.
No, I just think because I said this at the beginning, but we've been burned so many times, and we're still being burned now. I think if we didn't have the Sancho, Garnacho, all these types of situations going on right now, I'd probably feel a little less like serious about it. But especially when we've had a history of just you disrespect the club, you're out, and it's pretty clear. And we've grown up with that ethos, and whether rightly or wrongly, it contributed to our success, but it kind of shown me what the power balance should be in a big football club, and I think that's what I still think it should be like. And you'll get it wrong every now and again, but just this entitlement of overpaid players thinking that they can do this to a fan base, and to like they're not thinking about the fan base, but they're the ones who get hit by it at the end of the day. So yeah, that's I guess where I'm coming from with that.
Okay, look, let's hit one of the other games. Let's go for the Fulham Manchester United game. Manchester United, Dev, we'll go to you first, right? But just quickly, right? One of the things, just to sort of paint the picture, one of the things that was so impressive about the United game, or United's performance about Arsenal, was just how lively they looked, and how strong Mbeumo is, and how dynamic Cunha is, and how persistent he has been, this manager, with this idea that he has brought from Portugal. It looks like, however, after this Fulham performance, that some of that sort of good energy that was coming from that, has been sort of waned away already. Or has Wayne away already? Is this guy capable? Is the record actually preceding, progress? Or is it actually, again, looking like you have some individual brilliance there in moments, but actually it's not working? And teams that are willing to play against what probably does work a lot more for the low block and the quality that is available to most teams in the Premier League is making his life really difficult.
To be honest, yeah, it's all of those things and a little bit more. I think what's annoyed me most, I look back at the two games as a whole. That's last season in a nutshell, really, where we looked good against big teams. Like, we beat City at the Etihad, we beat you in the FA Cup. I think Chelsea beat us both, but to be fair, Chelsea had our number last season and the season before. But even Liverpool, we should have beaten at Anfield as well. So I'm really upset at the fact that we've let a really good start against you lot, where we should have beat you. I don't think we gave you much joy in the game. You took your chance. Well, let's say we handed you the chance. Bayindir handed you the chance, and we just saw the same things happen where Bayindir, his clear fundamental problems as a goalkeeper got sorted out. You put the ball on top of him, thinking he's 6'6" and he's going to catch it. He's physically unable to catch it, which I don't understand. I think he needs to really sort himself out as a goalkeeper in that sense, because that is a fundamental flaw in his game, and he doesn't have enough of the other things to make him better at those things to make that okay, like De Gea did. De Gea was awful coming out for the ball, but one of the best shot stoppers I've ever seen in my life. So I'm not really happy at all with how he played, but I think just the overall lack of intensity, like the first 20 minutes, golden. Oh my God, replay that. It was beautiful. We should have been ahead, and Cunha's got to look at himself.
I do feel a little like if Cunha takes that first chance, this whole conversation could be different.
Whole different game, because then you see what Fulham usually do. They would sit in a little bit, and then we would probably settle into our shape better, which ultimately the midfield two against you didn't look too bad, because I don't think you challenged us. I'm surprised. I don't think Zubi and Rice really challenged us that much, and all you've got to do to challenge those two is do one pass and get in behind, and that's it, because the positional indiscipline of Bruno Fernandes will leave us high and dry all the time, and I think he knows that. But I'm most annoyed with the manager on this point, because we as a fan base, I think you can all collectively agree, we've given him so much slack. We've said we will come out with every excuse saying that last season was this, there were mitigating factors, and there were mitigating factors. The brother finished 15th and he lost us a European final against Spurs. I don't care which way you look at it. He managed that game poorly. He managed a lot of games poorly. He managed maybe 5 or 6 games well. And especially with a manager he's one of them tactical periodization managers, which Jose was, Villas Boas was, where they will analyze the offense, the opponent, almost more than themselves, where they'll try and adjust to what they're going to do. Did it very well at Sporting, did it a couple of games against the bigger clubs, like I say, against you guys. But against Fulham, I'm actually sat there worrying. As soon as the game started, I thought, oh, Lukic and their other midfielder, I forgot his name now, but they're big. Oh no, that's a problem. That's all that came into my head. And I thought, Calvin Bassey and Iwobi and Burma's going to get no joy against them. They're too physical. That's all I thought. I didn't think anything else. Ahmad had a terrible game. Dallo was terrible when he came on. Everyone had a bad game except the 19-year-old centre-back, who we're going to lose to Real Madrid if we're not careful in 2 to 3 years' time. So overall, I'm just angry at Ruben Amorim. I'm not subscribing to this idea that it's 2 games in and all this. He's had 30 odd games and he's got 28 points in 29 games in the Premier League. He's been awful since he's come in, and we have to be clear about that. And now he's got more of his own players in, and the midfield too is always going to be a problem for us. But you'll see in the transition when we play, it becomes a bit of a midfield 3. He expects his central centre-back to push up and make it a bit more balanced. We actually play with a back 4 when we're in transition, like we did against the Arsenal game when we're moving forward. So it's not as bad of a system thing as you think. But how you watch that game, you see 5-time Champions League winning Casemiro dive and get a yellow card. You see Bruno have his 4-second penalty routine disrupted, and he finds that as a good reason to smack it over the bar instead of resetting himself and letting his football do the talking. You see that happen. You see Ugarte, who is just a breaker and he wants to pass backwards and sideways. Not really a terrible thing, but it's just not what we needed in that game. You let Mount play the majority of the game, 70 minutes, when he gasses out, which he shouldn't be gassing out with one game a week. That's another thing. But you see all of that happen, and you let our most prodigious young talent rot on the bench. Kobbie Mainoo, how he didn't come on, and we all said that he should have come on. Whether he comes on and changes the game, I don't know. But the fact that Ruben Amorim let that happen, and we are 80 minutes in, and I lost my head at this point, I'm not going to lie. We're 80 minutes in, and Luke Shaw just about comes off for Aiden Heaven, and we bring on Harry Maguire, and he thinks that's going to change the game for us. What on earth are you thinking? I'm still angry at Ruben. I'm still because he'll then come out and say all these good things about we had this in the game, we had that, mate. You had an opportunity to change both the games. Kobbie should have come on against you. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is he bringing in Ugarte against you? Kobbie should have come on.
Is he being forced out of the club or forced to sign a new deal? I don't know the ins and outs. What's going on there?
Something's going on. Yeah, something's going on. He hasn't signed a new deal yet. But if that's the case, you do a Højlund and you don't bring him on the squad. Like,
does that mean? Hold on. Does that mean he hasn't signed a new deal since his sort of England stardom? You know, since it all happened. So
he signed a new deal then. No, he signed a new deal after his breakout year, and then he had they're angling for another one because he's not on a lot. He's not on a lot of money at all, relative to some of his teammates. But I'm worried, and there's a couple of things. I'm not turned on Ruben. I'm upset with him. I'm not turned on him. He's still our manager. All this, but there's two things that will make me really shift. Like, not fully, but it will make me really shift if anything happens to Kobbie Mainoo, as in he continues to not be played, or worse, he leaves while Ruben Amorim's still there. I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. But also, this record that we have of having an academy grad in our starting lineup or in our squad in every Premier League game for the last 80 years, or every top flight game for the last 80 years. The only academy grads, he's had a couple of times now where it's just been Kobbie, but our only academy grads that we've got on the bench now, Tyler Fredrickson, Tom Heaton, and Kobbie Mainoo. If he
they're not actually. Are they starting? Is the record for them to start?
Just in the squad.
For them in the squad?
Yeah, just in the squad. Yeah. But if he loses that, and he's been close to the line a few times,
allowed to lose that. They like that, don't they?
No, that would have to be. I couldn't accept that.
That would be the end of it.
That would be the end for me. Genuinely, that would be the end for me. I couldn't take that. So no, mate. I'm really unhappy with it because nothing changed from last season. That we had one good game against you, which we were capable of last season. But in a game where you're supposed to lay down a marker, and you've had a week to prepare. You're not doing 9 to 5s, lads. You're doing 4-5 hour sessions 2-3 days a week. You're good. You're athletes. You're supposed to make this work. And Fulham outworked us and bullied us towards the end of the game, which is what we've always seen. So overall, I'm upset. And we could beat Grimsby. We could beat Burnley.
Manager. It's Marco Silva is constantly impressing me. It's
he's a very good manager.
Cheeky little Emil Smith Rowe goal as well.
First touch. Oh.
I know. Good Lord. Yeah. 2 ex-Arsenal boys involved in that. Stealing 2 points from United. Let's move over.
Man, Dallo gave you the ball, but we'll forget about
that. It's a torrid time for United. Who's your next game, actually?
Grimsby. And then Burnley.
Okay,
Burnley.
Right, Burnley. Grimsby.
He loses that. He doesn't win that. Then
anything but wins in those games, and I think trouble is just around the corner.